first I want to talk about racism just a little bit. I think it is used synonymously with bigotry, which I try not to do, right? I think racism is sort of a societal, institutional issue, right? It's sort of sometimes people talk about white privilege or male privilege or whatever, but it's sort of reflected in that. What is it that, I won't quote Randy Newman, but, it is something, what keeps people down and what gives you opportunity, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I think we still have sort of that, it's there, right? As a society and as an institution, American society still has racism in it, right? In the sense that we're still, we're not addressing some of the problems we need to address, particularly with African Americans. So, or American Africans, or just black people, I think also American Indians. In Montana, it's we don't have a lot of black people, so we have more American Indians, and I think they, the indigenous people experience it more acutely. That, and I think that's here. Sure, I think both of those things are here to some extent. But do I think in general Bozeman people are bigoted? I think no. I think, and that's probably 99.9% of the population. We have had white supremacists come through in groups from time to time. I think there are groups in our town. They're underground. They only pop up once in a while. We've opposed them in the past. But I'm not really talking about that kind of bigotry. When I hear racism, I think of, are there still sort of these societal issues that we've not addressed that result in that have disproportionate results in society, and it's hard to see here because we're like ivory snow, right? We're 99 and 44% white. I mean, there is a Native American population here, but it's relatively small, statistically small, and I think when. And if you look at it more sociologically and less as sort of politically, I think that's what I come to.
Yeah, because the conversation I had with Judith Heilman yesterday, it was framed around the idea of subtle racism. And I think, that, if we're going to parse words, I think racism is a mindset and bigotry is action.
Huh. Well, that could be. I don't think the examples she gave in particular were examples of society acting in a certain way. They were more personal examples of someone that doing something, a behavior. And some of that might just be ignorance or unfamiliarity. Ignorance plays a big role, right? Yeah. Certainly, I don't know all the rules for relating to American Indians, right? I don't know their culture well enough. And I think vice versa sometimes, right? I think both of there's still a sort of a clash of cultures that result in issues between the races, if you will. I guess for me, there's another one probably. There's the issue of undocumented immigrants, illegal aliens, whatever we're calling them this week, right? People who are here in this country illegally. And I think that's an issue of that's still, that's on a lot of Americans' minds. I think it will be a key 2016 issue. And I don't consider that racism or bigotry. I think people who are illegal, entering this country illegally is wrong, right? It's but I think that a lot of people feel that way, and they get called bigots or racists because they say no. I think Senator Tester said one time, "What part of illegal don't you understand?" Right? I mean, if it's illegal, whatever the crime, that has to be addressed first. And so some people would tell you, well, that's racism or bigotry. I would disagree with that.
It's 1450 KMMS, 1340 KPRK. Bozeman Mayor Jeff Krauss in the studio, and your phone calls 406-522-TALK. Caller, thanks for hanging in there. What's your name and what's your question for the mayor?
Oh, hey, it's Aaron, and I just have really more of a few small points to make. One of the quick ones is, I think we need to start, if racism is something that is important to us, I think we need to start changing around our wordage a little bit more. I mean, I think it's sort of ironic that we call black African Americans. I mean, you don't call me Irish American or European American. I mean, they're Americans. They have different colored skins, but I mean, they're as American as the next guy, And yet, it's important that we enunciate the fact that they're African American, but we don't enunciate the fact that my European heritage has anything to do with the fact that I'm a full-bore American. And then I guess the other quick point that I wanted to make is, racist is alive and well. I don't know about in our town locally as much as in other places, but dude, you go down to, Chris, you go down to Baltimore and walk through some of those streets, and you'll go home in a stretcher, and that's because blacks hate you. Blacks hate, white people, and I don't think, in our country, there's not a lot of places where, a black guy can go in the wrong place and wind up on a stretcher. So, I mean, I feel like, all of a sudden the whites have this huge obligation to be, like, ultra sensitive towards racism for blacks, yet no one's really addressing the fact that there are many, many places in this country where you and I can't go because of the color of our skin. I mean, we'll wind up straight up dead. So
well, I appreciate your thoughts and insight.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Mayor, do you have any thoughts on those topics? Because I can discuss my experience, and I don't want this to become a discussion of my experience.
Well, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. There are parts of it not dissimilar to Baltimore. Mm-hmm. I used to take the bus downtown and work midnights in the train yard, and I think what the caller just referred to is more socioeconomic than it is race in many ways, right? Mm-hmm. Certainly, we have seen a deterioration of the inner cities, and also I think black families that we've seen a deterioration. That there's a famous study from the 60s that talks about the importance of families in crime and social mobility, and if family isn't emphasized, you're on the losing end, right? And I think we're seeing that more and more. I mean, we just had this where we celebrated these lifetime commitments for gay people, and yet I don't think our policies sort of do that for other people, right? I don't think our policies, whether it's welfare or employment, unemployment policies, really emphasize the family unit. And I think the family unit is important to American society, or I wouldn't take a stand for equal opportunity for family units, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so that's an issue. So that socioeconomic issue is a big one, right? Poor people are going to be mad at you. Appalachians are going to distrust you and not like you because you're an outsider. And so there are places that you are the outsider and you'll feel it, and it could be an issue. I think that is absolutely true. And what causes that? What I would say is, to me, what the people in those ghettos in Baltimore, or most people have seen The Wire in Baltimore or wherever, Richmond, D.C., wherever it was, but I think that's bigotry. I think that's the individuals not liking you because of your race, and also that you're perceived to be wealthy and whatever else, but have opportunities they don't have. But racism to me is sort of this institutional thing, right? This societal thing that says, here's how you get ahead, right? Mm-hmm. Your dad knows the judge, so you get a cheaper sentence. The perfect one is drug laws, right? Drug laws are racist. Drug laws are racist. Okay, if you're black, you go to prison, you go to jail. If you're white, you afford a lawyer. You're in the right socioeconomic strata. You get a lawyer. Your parents know somebody. You get helped, and you get off with a suspended sentence, and off you go to college. Right? That just increases. As a society, we have institutionalized a system that creates a disparity between the races that way, right? It emphasizes that socioeconomic difference. And so I don't want to sound like a sociologist, but to me, that's the perfect example. Drug laws and how they're enforced are the perfect example. The housewife with mother's little helper is one way, and but if a black man had a few in his pocket, that's off you go, right? You're in the big house now. To me, that's what I'm trying to show the difference of, Mm-hmm. And do I think that would happen? I think that happens socioeconomically in Bozeman. Some, sure, I would think that. Yeah.
Well, the experience I will share and relate it, because the caller made mention that there are places that, as a white human being, that we are not safe to go. I went to Jazz Fest in New Orleans to see Fish.
Yeah.
Van Morrison was the headliner one weekend. Fish was the headliner the second weekend. And where I was staying, the most convenient access to the fairgrounds to Jazz Fest, because it's held on the racetrack fairgrounds, the most direct way was to walk through one of the worst neighborhoods in New Orleans, and was told and advised not to go there because I was a white guy.
Yeah.
But I went through and I introduced myself as I was walking down the street to the people I would meet. And it turns out a woman needed help with her car, and it was a Chevy Cavalier, which my mother has driven since forever. And I was very familiar with what the problem was and was able to assist in fixing it. And I got a pass. I mean, they were like, hey, you fixed our car. Don't worry. It was on your way back to your hotel. Stop on by for lunch or stop on by for dinner. It's just about... It's not that people can't go places. It's just about being human and making that connection and introducing yourself. Yeah, I'm not from New Orleans, but you know what? I'm going to walk through your neighborhood because it's the quickest way to get to the fairgrounds to see Jazz Fest.
Well, there is no doubt that there are places in America quite violent. The city of Chicago, right, is an incredibly violent place. At least looking at it from the weekly statistics that I read on the internet, how many murders. And I remember Richmond having that same thing. And, we all remember Baltimore Murderland from The Wire, probably. So there are places like that. But, the flip side of that, there are places where, life expectancy is very short in the country that are outside the inner city, but they also may be in some ways sort of race related. So understanding each other, there are different cultures, that's one thing, but also with our laws and rules and not only how they're made and what they say and how they're enforced, that's the issue of racism that I think sometimes gets misused. Was the guy that went into and shot the people in the church, was he mad about churches? Was he mad about black people? Obviously, I think he said that. Did he use the Confederate flag as a symbol? Yes. And so what I would say is, he was motivated out of race hatred. He was, right? He was a bigot. I don't think he was crazy. He showed a lot of calculation. He waited there an hour. He did everything kind of calculatedly. I don't have much sympathy for insanity as a defense for mass murders. I just don't. You could sort of you get into this situation where you're trying to figure out what the definition of is, You know, when you say it's crazy to shoot 9 people. Yes, it is, but that doesn't mean that you're crazy. That just means you're evil. And I think he was evil, and it was centered around race hatred, and people who are talking about him that way are on target.